Watershed District. I didn't understand it. So thank you again.
You could tell, I was just going to say, you could tell that Representative Savick does not have a great ego, because she was just happy to have her senator speak words for her. So we're thankful to be here.
Well, I came to learn today. I didn't come to speak, but I want to welcome everybody. And I think this is a great opportunity, and I'm very excited and happy here. And I will do whatever I need to do to help this go through at the state level. So let's proceed.
And some of you who live in Alberta know I've been here a few times. This has been an ongoing project, and we've been educated about it for a number of years now. And I'm assuming we're hearing about another phase today. So we're delighted.
Chad, the city manager here. We have Mr. Brooks, our city councilman are here. We have Randy Cure, our director of the chamber. Susie Peterson, the director of the CVB. Steve Yonke, our city engineer. Chris Chalmers, seen him this morning right there. Community education. And with that, I will get started. My name is Brett Raney, the district administrator for the Rock River Watershed District. Just a little background. In 2003, the Rock River Watershed District was created to provide cleaner water, flood control over 246 square miles of the 11 lakes in our community. The primary flow of the watershed district runs through the city limits of Albert Lea and south into Albert Lea Lake, eventually to the Rock River, and then it flows ultimately to the Mississippi River. We are the headwaters, meaning that we control the very first drop. The district has an aggressive state-approved 10-year water management plan that provides a clear blueprint for my job. And that is to improve water quality, improve flood control features to avoid the destructive flooding in our community, and to provide improved fish and wildlife habitat. And the project before you today does all of those things. In 2004, the city of Albert Lea, by a tremendous 80% vote, approved the local option sales tax to provide funding for water improvement projects. As a gateway community, we believe that it's important to give people the wow factor as they enter into our state. We have worked together to make Albert Lea a better community, and we're proud to be known as the land between the lakes. I'm also here today to say a huge thank you for what you've done to help our community. With the state's help, we've cleaned up Edgewater Park, Old Dump, and completed and continue to do flood hazard mitigation projects and wildlife habitat projects through the legacy dollars. So we cannot thank you enough for your commitment to our community. Our community continues to work together to find every opportunity to leverage these funds by partnering with state, local, and federal dollars. The Rock River Watershed District and the Albert Lea community have a history of presenting and completing quality projects. The district is just a catalyst to make great things happen. Without a true community-based effort, this would not be a success.
This looks just like Wisconsin. Well, we've overlaid it on a Wisconsin map, and it's close, but not quite Wisconsin. So.
Yeah, I said we don't bond for Wisconsin.
Yeah, we're not asking for any bonding dollars from Wisconsin, no. So basically, I'm going to give you a little overview of the projects that we've done, and then a little overview of why we're here today. I get pretty excited about this stuff and what we've accomplished, so if I start talking too fast, let me know, because that tends to happen. So with that, I'm going to get started here. Maybe. So just to give you a little overview of Fountain Lake, again, it's located in the heart of Albert Lea. It's roughly 550 square acres of water with an average depth of 6 feet. Again,
What's the deepest thing?
the deepest area is roughly 12 feet.
That's the deepest.
Yep.
Does it freeze out in the winter?
No, we have 2 aerator systems on the lake that help keep our game fish alive. So again, you're looking here at basically a regional destination. Everything that you can imagine happens on this lake, from recreational opportunities as far as canoeing, kayaking, boating, skiing, water trails, for water sports, and then also walking. The city has done a great job of putting roughly 15 miles of walking path around Fountain Lake. Again, to show you the community support that this lake has, again, the Watershed District was formed by a petition of volunteers or citizens out there that said, we want to do something about our lakes. So with that, the Watershed District was formed again in 2003, and again, to show their support, they overwhelmingly approved a 0.5% sales tax by over 80% of the voters. Again, what was Fountain Lake's issues? Why did Fountain Lake silt in? Well, we have 100 acres, or over 100 square miles of land that actually drains down through Fountain Lake and then into Albert Lea. Primary agricultural land use, along with the urban stormwater of the city of Albert Lea. With that, we have major tributaries that carry in sediment, which also contains phosphorus, which is our number one enemy, which turns our lakes green. Again, to show you the accumulations within the lake, Bancroft Bay, this is where Bancroft Creek comes in. We've had accumulations of 1 to 2 or 5 to 8 feet. Edgewater Bay, roughly 5 feet. And then the main lake, whoops, now I'm going too fast. In this main lake, we've had roughly 5 feet also. So with that, it really drastically reduces the water quality in Albert Lea Lake, turning it basically pea green, and I'm sure some of you have seen that in other lakes. And so you know some of the situations we're dealing with. This really inhibits habitat and also recreation. So what have we done to improve what's coming into the lake? Well, we worked with all these wonderful agencies, the City of Albert Lea, Freeborn County, DNR, PCA, SWCD, and done multiple number of projects. And what I want to do now is talk about a little bit of the projects that we've worked on. The biggest one in the ag community, again, is filter strips, protecting the ditch systems from soil that's eroded in. Now, this project was actually started by the same volunteers that petitioned for the district. They went around farmer to farmer to get them to sign up for filter strips. In 2002 and 2003, Freeborn County was third, or in the top 10 in the nation for filter strip signups. That's how many acres went into filter strips. We've also worked heavily with SWCD and NRCS on putting in PREP and WRP and RIM projects. Those are wetland restoration projects throughout the upper parts of the watershed. One of the big cost share programs that the district runs is a rock inlet program, basically taking out all those standpipes that you see out in the fields and actually putting in a rock inlet, so they got to filter the sediment through the rock before it drains into the ditches and into the lake. Yes?
Can I ask you a question? What's in the filter strips? Is it just like a canal there, or is there something in it?
A filter strip is basically a grass buffer that the sediment basically has to allow it to filter through before it reaches the ditch system. We have over 345 miles of public ditch system in the county, so it's really important to protect that so that sediment don't just run straight into the ditches.
That's what's along the...
It's along the ditches, yep. So again, just going over a lot of the other BMPs that we put on the land above Fountain Lake. Again, I talked about PREP, CRP, and WRP. We've looked at nutrient management programs with a lot of our farmers, looked at water and sediment basins, grazing systems, and crop management that we've worked with. Now this is sort of looking outside the box. The district has looked at a multi-pronged approach to achieve clean water in Fountain Lake and our lower lakes. And one of the huge benefits that we're seeing is through rough fish management. This is the elimination of carp, or Asian carp. We've done, as you can see on this map over here, I'm sorry, I'm going to run past the screen. We have Fountain Lake that sits right here. We have Paper Lake, School Section, Upper Lower Twin, all these lakes. All these lakes right here have been protected now with what we call an electric fish barrier. The electric fish barrier pretty much prevents carp from going into these shallow basin lakes, spawning, and just reproducing at mad intervals, and then repopulating our lakes with carp, which we all know uproot vegetation and create that phosphorus suspension back up in the lakes. So what we've done is looked at putting in these carp barriers and then actually doing reclamations on the lakes, which means killing off the lakes, stocking them with game fish. And we've seen huge results from this. We've had a lot of help with DNR on working with us on doing these lake reclamations. and it's again made significant improvements in water clarity. Again, another upstream benefits that we're doing is a bunch of bank stabilization on our creeks. This is where I would say, getting back to your question, ma'am, this would be where that filter strip would go in this area here. So when the water runs, it has to go through that filter strip. What are some other things that we're doing? We're working with the city of Albert Lea on a street sweeping program. We've installed a number of rain gardens. The other thing that we're doing out in the rural area is looking at septic system compliance inspections. If you look at this map, the district took a very, not a very favorable stand with most landowners out there. They don't like when we have to go after them for a compliance inspection on their sewer system. But they did it, and we checked almost all of the watershed district. Actually, Hayward Township was done last year, and Freeman Township will be done this year. That gives us 2 townships. Basically, what we're doing is eliminating all the straight pipe septic systems that go right to a ditch or a stream. So again, there's been millions of dollars spent on that program by citizens cleaning up their on-site sewage systems. So what have we seen by doing all these upstream projects? We have seen an increase in water clarity. As you can see, the transparency, basically that tells you how far down into the water column you can see. 2010, we've had our best readings of about 2.7, and that's as a summer average. Now 2.7, it don't seem like much, but for us around here, that's huge, a huge increase, because usually we're looking at less than a foot. Again, the MPCA standard is this line, and we've met it 1 year. So it tells us that our upstream projects are working. And this is the nuts and bolts of why we're here today. Why is it not a huge benefit for all the upstream stuff? Well, it's called this internal loading. All the sediment that is draining in this lake now is full of phosphorus, and phosphorus is what the algae feeds on to create algae bloom. Right now, 65 to 85%, or 80% of our phosphorus in Fountain Lake is actually sitting in the lake bottom. So that's why it's important to get that phosphorus out of there, remove it, so we don't have that internal cycling of phosphorus creating those algae blooms. By doing this, we'll increase the depth and reduce that internal loading. By doing this, we'll also increase aquatic habitat and improve recreational activities. Again, we're looking at removing approximately 1 million cubic yards of accumulated sediment. The estimated project cost of this is $15 million, and half of this will be funded through the local option sales tax. And that's it for my speech.
Where does the sediment go? Where is it? What's the disposal?
The disposal, that is the stuff that we're working with the engineers on. Usually we look at a secondary site that's outside of town, roughly 100 acres, and that's where we'd pump it and then slowly dewater that water back into the lake without the sediment and phosphorus. Yes?
You talked about stocking or game fish.
Yep.
I think it's really deep enough. Somewhere you're stocking game fish.
Yep.
But that lake isn't deep enough for game fish, is it?
Yes, it is actually, it is, because what we do is we stock it with native Minnesota fish, which are used to shallow lakes, and those fish would be northern pike and perch. So we stock it with native Minnesota fish, and they can handle those shallower lakes.
2 questions.
Yep.
So, you're dredging all that out of there now. What's to prevent it just coming back again from the ag land? Are you involved in somehow trying to reduce the amount of phosphorus and fertilizers and stuff that will be pouring it right back in again?
And yes, we are. That's what we've done, all these projects upstream. All those projects that we've done have been meant to keep phosphorus on the land or keep the soil from eroding back into the ditches and then into the lake. So it's an ongoing process, and that's why we put in all those filter strips. That's why we redo the stream bank stabilizations, rock inlets. That's why what we're saying is we've controlled most of what's coming in through the upper watershed. Now there's little things that we're going to do in the design of the actual dredging plan for Fountain Lake, like put sediment basins at the inlets so we can capture the sediment at where it dumps into the lake, and then we can just use a backhoe to clean whatever accumulation is, because I'm never going to stop all the sedimentation from coming in the lake. We know Mother Nature plays funny games, and if she gives us a 10-inch rainfall, there's no way it can stop all of it from coming in. But we can strategize and we can plan for it and reduce it.
So the phosphorus that's accumulated will sit there until it's washed away or something. So do I understand that? Is that right?
Are you asking about filter strips? Do they?
Well, the phosphorus is being applied to the land, right?
Yes, but when it's applied to the land, it usually stays in the land through and then recycled by the agricultural plant using it. You know, a lot of it goes into the food for the animals. The phosphorus that we have issues with is all types of phosphorus that's connected to the soil. Most of that's actually native phosphorus. What we've found out through a study through the University of Minnesota, our farmers are actually mining phosphorus out of our area, which means they're actually putting on less than what their crops usually need. So we're not seeing a problem as far as what our farmers are putting on. What we're seeing is our native soils and what's already been washed in and sitting in this lake for over 20, 30 years. Yes?
I've been told that cattails will take phosphorus out of the water, water products. Is that a possibility here?
All vegetation, it's just like a crop field. I mean, all vegetation needs phosphorus to grow and produce its fruit. Cattails can help, all types of vegetation can help. But if we don't get the water clarity, we can't get vegetation.
This chart that shows the count, if you add up failed separation and imminent fall threat, that's a pretty large segment. What happens to that segment of the discovery?
So what she's talking about is the on-site sewer systems that fail to meet separation or fail to meet what the state says you need to have separation to filter out the nasty stuff out of the sewage, or imminent health threat. Imminent health threat is basically a straight discharge to a ditch, stream, or a lake. Basically, though, they have 10 months to upgrade their system. Imminent health threats are a little bit different. There is some protection there. There is some treatment of the effluent that's coming out of the systems. They have 5 years to treat. What I can tell you is since we've started this program, there are over 700 new septic systems that went in the watershed district. Chad.
Hey, I just want to add, city manager for Everly, just want to state that we're a very strong supporter of the project, not only because it's local and regional significance, but we feel it's statewide significance. To really think about it, we're focusing our attention now on restoring Beltway, ultimately Outwardly Lake, Interstate 35 process Outwardly Lake. And that's one of the first lakes we're going to see coming into Minnesota. We want to make sure that it's a vibrant recreational lake that tourists are going to see being one of the best lakes in the state of Minnesota. So I just want to add our enthusiasm and support for the project.
Thank you, Chad. Any other questions?
No, this is it. So, no questions?
We have other questions from the committee? We've been at this a while. I sort of recall that our very first visit here was sort of a PCA ordered cleanup, and when they got in there, it was even worse than they thought and more expensive than they thought.
Yeah, we're actually sitting at that site right here, and yeah, that was the Edgewater dump cleanup, and we have an old dump just on the other side of this building, and you can see where we've excavated and put it in the proper facility. And that was the start of kind of this long list of projects that we've gone through to get to this point today. So,
It's sometimes nice to see the after when you that's
thanks to you guys for that project as well.
Are there any helps for individuals, because you've done this really nice job of going out and looking at septic sites, and of course, as an individual homeowner or farmer or whatever that has that septic system, you know, the imminent health threat is in 5 years. Is there some help given to them if they financially can't afford it, or
Yes. Yep, the imminent health threat is 10 months, so it's a pretty tight program. The district cost shares for all the compliance inspections, so that basically pays for a licensed contractor to go out there and inspect their system and tell them what they have. There are quite a few ways that we've developed ways to help those homeowners fix their system and help pay for it. One of them is a county loan program, so they can actually pay it back over 15 years on their taxes. There's other grant money out there through the Department of Ag for a lot of the old farmhouses. Some of it's actually grant dollars. There's also money through USDA for elderly couples, so we give them all that information to help them find ways to pay for the system. And it's worked really well.
Is this being done throughout the state? Now?
No,
Not this intensive.
not this intensive. Most counties have it on transfer or a sale of the property. We've actually went after it township by township, year after year. So.
Andy, just wanted to add that on the particular side as well too, just to the north, the Youth Soccer Association has entered into an agreement to develop that into a soccer complex. We're doing it all through local fundraising. It's on city property. The city is also partnering with the watershed to acquire property just to the east of here, staging area for the project. We eliminated the assessment on that property to advance the project moving forward. Just want to add those two things as well.
It looks like, oh, there's one more.
Yep.
I was trying to understand, when you said you did the fish kill on the lakes,
Yep.
was the electronic or electric, or how was that done?
The first thing you do is you install the electric fish barrier, which we have 3 of them now, and we're actually putting in 2 more here in the next 2 years. But you install that so that the carp can't migrate upstream. And then what you do is you do an actual treatment, an aerial application of what they call rotenone. And rotenone will actually kill off all the carp or all the invasive species. It kills the game species too, but there's so many carp in there that there really is no habitat for the game species, the native game species. So you get rid of those, then the lake basically comes back, crystal clean water, vegetation, cattails, bulrush, a lot of aquatic, submergent vegetation comes back like coontail, cara, stuff like that that the plants and ducks like. And then with that comes your clean water. It's not, all the plants then take care of that internal phosphorus load by using it and recycling it.
What is rotenone?
Rotenone is a natural root substance that's grown in Africa, and they've been using it for many years to actually basically use it for fishing. It kills the fish and then they harvest them. We use it for a different purpose to eliminate them.
Does it persist? Or
What's that?
does it persist?
Nope. It's a natural plant, and over
The
time.
economic impact. Why does the state have an interest in this? And they told the story well today. They talk about when you start coming into Minnesota, this is your first view of this natural resource that we advertise all over the country and the world, and it's why people come here. I think the regional economy also. We want Albert Lea to continue to be healthy and competitive. The state has an interest in strong regional economies. And what all of the regions around the state are beginning to understand is natural resources are part of that. It's part of what draws people to their area. We always thought of it as somehow an unnecessary amenity, and now we know that it's essential to a healthy community.
There was a local option sales tax in place, and there will be matching funds to kind of leverage state dollars. Does that weigh in your mind? Does that give a project like this more credence when the locals are already on board?
Absolutely. We have been at a few places on these trips. We've been so far in northwestern Minnesota, northeastern Minnesota. We're here now. We'll go to the southwest and central. And there are places that want the state to do 100%. And I will tell you that that's a hard climb for us. But in all of the visits we've had yesterday and today, there's been strong local effort, almost more that we usually look for a 50-50 match, 50% local, 50% state. And I will say that the cities in southeastern Minnesota, in many cases, are willing to do much more than that. And it just makes it much easier for the state to partner.
Alice, also with the Shell Rock River Watershed District, appearing before the legislature quite a few times, and with other projects here in Albert Lea and south central Minnesota. Another thing that the Capital Investment Committee likes to see is once these dollars are dispersed, kind of rounding up and seeing how the follow-through was with how those were implemented and how the project comes to fruition. And I think this is another example where you are pretty
Yes.
sure that will happen.
Do you know that the first time I came to Albert Lea, it was for that old dump? And when they opened it up and when they started to clean up, they discovered it was far worse than they thought, and the price tag went up. And so they asked, could we help them again? And now we're standing here. We're standing where that project started. And so we see the good news of that investment. And we see that the whole watershed district is working together, not giving up, and they aren't satisfied until they've restored the habitat. And what we heard, of course, today is it's sort of agriculture and recreation working together. When you restore habitat and you bring the wildlife back and the fish back, that in itself draws people. So we clean up water, we have clean water, but the side benefit is habitat for wildlife that helps hunters and anglers. We saw this morning outside of Austin a flood mitigation project that has multiple benefits. And the multiple benefits are clean water, habitat restoration, flood mitigation, so we save flood damage. So in a lot of these natural resources projects, there are multiple benefits. It is local communities solving problems, and I'll tell you, today I've been so impressed with the people who've spoken to us. They teach us, it's like a mini course. They come up with the solutions locally and then
Greater
help us
Minnesota,
understand.
we've been losing population, we've been losing jobs, and we have to think of ways to bring those things back into the communities. And this is one of the things that will help, because having tourists stop here, and I live in Wells, I grew up in this area, and I've always wondered why Albert Lea didn't have the tourists that Clear Lake, Iowa has. It's bigger lake, it's got 2 lakes, or more than 2 lakes, but 2 big lakes, and it's got a lot of potential here. So I'd just like to see it developed into that, because that can bring a lot of money.
Lakes Restoration Committee back in the late 90s, early 2000s. In terms of the community itself, it generates a tremendous amount of business in and around the lake. Being a destination, of course, they support our local grocery stores, gas stations, etc., all important members of the chamber. It also is a point of difference when we're trying to acquire employees for our major employers in town. Quality of life does matter, especially for those who have young families. Absolutely, and I think it's important to know that while 80-some% voted in favor of it, in a single item election, nearly 70% of the voters came out to vote in that election and overwhelmingly support the lakes. We did a study a number of years ago where we asked the community, it was known as Albert Lea Listens, we asked the community what was the best way to see Albert Lea. And their answer was walking, biking, and boating. And it's also a part of our National Vitality Project in getting people